Hello everybody, I'm Toby, and today I just kind of want to yap about Cuphead for a bit. And just as a very quick disclaimer before the video gets started proper, I will not be talking about any of the run and gun sections or the King's Idol sections in the DLC. So if you're here for any of that for whatever reason, now is your chance to leave. But anyway, how about I just start about going to part 1. Charms. Oh yeah, also the way this will be structured is I'll be talking about charms, weapons, and then bosses, in that order. So sit tight, because this might be a pretty long video. Cuphead's gameplay is like really simple. You can move, jump, dash, shoot, and parry. Parrying is the most interesting tool in your kit. When you parry a pink object, it essentially acts as a double jump and will build up your super meter. Your super meter being the cards at the bottom. One card equals one EX shot, and having 5 cards lets you do a super meter, or well, super attack I guess, which you unlock from doing the mausoleums, which we won't be talking about. Why? Because I forgot about them. But to put into basics, each isle has a mausoleum except for Hell and the DLC, because, well, the DLC was added afterwards and Inkwell Hell is the end of the game. And depending on which one you do, you'll get a different one. Mausoleum 1 will give you a screen-wide attack if you're playing as Cuphead or Mugman. The second one will give you invincibility, and the third one will give you this giant ghost. To be honest, the first one is the only one really worth using. And for Best Chalice, the first one does a kind of pillar of thing. It's basically just the Cuphead first one, but vertical. The second one is the best one, where it just gives you an extra hit point with a character that already has an extra hit point, so that's pretty overpowered. And the third one is basically just Cuphead and Mugman's first one, just, yeah, basically that. So there's not much else to really talk about, so I guess I'll move on to charms now. Charms in Cuphead can be pretty weird. I personally just think that Smoke Dash is the only one that's really worth using, but obviously opinions can vary from person to person, so I'm just going to start with Heart Charm. The heart gives you one extra piece of HP, but lowers your damage a bit, so recommended for new players. Coffee slowly builds up your super meter, as I mentioned in the gameplay. Super just lets you do a powerful attack. Smoke Dash is my personal favorite in the entire game. Just makes you completely invincible when you dash, and yeah, I think you know why that can be a really good charm. Whetstone is one of my least favorites. It does basically fuck all damage and just turns your parry into attack. I probably should have mentioned that first, but cry about it. Pea Sugar turns your first jump into a parry, which can be pretty useful in some situations, especially for the mausoleums. I'm not going to be mentioning the mausoleums in this video because they're just kind of boring, to be honest. Twin Heart is just the heart charm, but a bit better, I think. Actually, I'd say a little bit worse. It gives you more HP, and just lowers your damage even more. The Astral Cookie turns you into Miss Chalice, which Miss Chalice is especially overpowered. She gets a double jump, a kind of invincible roll, Dark Souls, I guess, and she also completely changes the plane physics. The plane levels I'm not going to be talking about because I don't want to. That's the only reason I have. Divine Relic gives you a lot of charms at the same time. That's a secret though, I'll let you figure that one out for yourself. Heart Ring is a really good charm. You parry once, get a piece of HP. Parry 2 more times, you get another piece of HP. And parry another 3 things, and you get another piece of HP. And that's about it for the charms. It's about time to move on to the weapons. What's that knocking sound?
Okay, now this is where I come in to talk about this.
I'm sorry, what in the actual fuck are you doing in my house? I barricaded the windows, I barricaded the doors, what's going on? How did you get in here?
That's not important, but now let's talk about weapons. Ah, yes, my favorite thing to talk about in Cuphead. Let's start with the most basic one, the pea shooter. No, not the plant, you idiot. It's the first weapon that you get in the game. Yes, it is a very solid weapon with very solid damage. And as a Cuphead expert myself, that has beaten the game like I don't know 10 times to test how good the each like gun goes. I'd say that I got very knowledgeable on how good the weapons are. So I'd say that the pea shooter may be your starting weapon, but it's actually very decent. You can turn around, you can lock in with the thing and shoot all around, and it reaches out to the ends of the earth if you want. But now let's talk about the chaser. Ugh. What is that? I guess I'm obligated to talk about this. The chaser is a charm that basically is an aimbot, and it lowers the damage every time you shoot it. So that means you get a weaker weapon, but you never miss your shot. I'd say that this weapon is actually terrible. It's the worst thing that you can actually pick for a gameplay or a game through of the game, like full. If you act, I had to play with this bullshit for like 10 hours. I'm not joking. I spent 10 hours with this gun only to beat the full game. It's that bad. All right, but now let's talk about my favorites, the roundabout, the boomerang, the Australian weapon itself, the thing that when you miss, it goes back around and deals even more damage. Let me tell you something. This weapon absolutely destroys bosses, especially the ones that retreat and then come back in, like Sally's stage play. It's absolutely ridiculous how fast you can get through the phases with this one. And let's not talk about the EX. The EX of this weapon is absolutely ridiculous. The way that it works, you throw a saw blade that works the same way as the normal shot, but you let that thing hit you, the EX is gone. So you can basically have to run away from the saw so it can stay on the screen for as long as it can to deal more damage. And when I say that you can abuse this, oh man, you can. It is absolutely ridiculous. But now let's talk about my two favorite, like top two, which are the spread shot and the lobber. The reason why I'm talking about both of them is because both of them are very good heavy hitters but close range. One is a spread shot that you can just be very close to your enemy and absolutely delete the phase of that boss. And the other is a stay away weapon, but it does a lot of heavy damage. And let me tell you, the EX of both of these, when used correctly, can absolutely shred everything. And it's amazing how they can do this. And the reason why I said speedrunning, because yes, this is the perfect. These are the perfect tools for speedrunning. The espresso when you get close, the lobber to set up the bouncing balls. So whenever a boss runs away, you can just set it up, run away, and shoot them with the spread shot, and there you go. It's a done deal. But now we have to talk about a very weird kind of weapon. That is the explosion. That this one is strange. It's a charge shot. It does more damage than the lobber. Like even the EX, the lobber is weaker than the full shot of the explosion. But this one is I don't recommend this because you need to do a lot of dodging, and for a person that's very impatient when it comes to bosses like me, it's not the best weapon to use. So yeah, that's why I don't recommend this. But if you want to, and if you're patient enough to use it, you can do it. But now we talk about the free of the DLC guns. Ooh. And we're gonna start with Twist Up. If I'm being honest, all of these guns are very good. The Twist Up may sound situational, but it actually isn't. If you know how to use Twist Up correctly, and the EX, which acts as a shield that can protect you from minions, it's absolutely ridiculous. And depending on which way you fire the EX, it goes in different directions. So that's another thing that you got to keep in mind. And then we have the sizzle, as I like to call it, the one that goes three ways, pierces, and has a laser beam for an EX. Do I need to say more when it comes to how good this weapon is? It pierces, it kills almost any minion in one shot. And the EX you can fire from like the edge of Australia and it will reach all the way from to America. It's absolutely broken. But now we talk about Crackshot, the predecessor of the Chaser. But instead of being actual fucking garbage, it's actually an S tier gun. Because it only chases if the first bullet doesn't hit. Because if the first bullet hits, it does a lot of damage. And if you don't hit the first shot, it becomes a weaker shot that aimbots itself to the boss. And you can also abuse the EX a lot. You can use it as a parry make to do more damage. You can let it fire, and once it's out of like shots, you can parry it and do even more damage. It's absolutely ridiculous. S tier gun. But now we talk about the bosses, and this is where I leave. Thanks for letting me use your house, Toby.
Alright, I'll just accept that fact. Bosses in this game, yeah, bosses. We're going to be covering bosses now. That's my job, before I got rudely interrupted. But anyway, let's just get into this already. In all honesty, the Isle 1 bosses are all like, pretty good, but the ones that I'm going to be focusing on, as said earlier, are Cagney Carnation and Ribian Croaks. So I'm going to start with Cagney Carnation. Cagney is a kind of simple fight. He has only a few attacks in each phase, so this shouldn't be too hard, hopefully. So he has this first seed attack, which they home onto you, and they can sometimes be annoying depending on where you are at that current time, so just always be wary of that. And then he has this weird boomerang attack, which I have no idea what the hell this thing is even supposed to be. So it just goes out, and then it comes back via the bottom layer, giving, you know, funny boomerang. So to avoid this, either drop down to the bottom layer or crouch, and if you drop down, just jump back onto the top platforms and keep shooting him. Then he has this... Now I know this game has like a very rubber hose art style, but then he turns himself into a gun and starts shooting seeds into the air. Depending on the color of seed, it'll make something different, but I honestly could not be bothered to figure out what color does what. Just be sure to parry the pink one. If you don't, it's such a nightmare. So, hello, hi, editing Toby here. I somehow completely forgot to mention the second phase of Cagney, so I'm gonna do that right now. So first he'll just plant roots into the ground, and those will occasionally spike up across the 3 platforms. Also, yeah, you lose your floor privileges here. Cry about it all you want, you're not gonna get them back. He'll also start shooting dandelions, I think that's what that is. I have no clue, but yeah, that's actually really about it for the second phase. Sometimes the dandelions can be pink, but anyway, back to your regularly scheduled Toby yapping. Ribian Croaks are much more complicated though. So in their first phase, they have 2 attacks. I don't know which one is which, so I'm just going to be referring to them as the short or tall one, because I'm lazy. The short one will start just shooting Hadoukens at you or something, I guess. It's kind of funny. Also be sure to parry the pink ones, given if you're going for a perfect, these are the only pink projectile in the entire thing that at least count towards a perfect. So please just be wary of that if you're going for perfect ranks. And then the tall one will shoot like fireflies, which have very low health, so they're very easy to deal with. So just kind of mostly shoot them, and if they get too close, just kill them. Then at phase 2, the short one will go off to the other side of the screen, and then he'll start clapping some like balls into existence. I don't know how, but okay. And the tall one turns into a fan, which is actually really cool because he starts pushing you towards the other one. So it's actually really kind of movement based. So you have to be very wary about your movement, where you're going, and where the balls will end up. Phase 3, the tall one eats the small one and turns into a bloody fucking slot machine for some reason. And then you gotta parry the handle to make it spin. Then there are 3 things it can land on, being tiger, frog, and the devil, I think. I don't know what these things are supposed to be. Some people have said it's a snake, but okay. The frog, or snake, depending on whatever the hell side you're on, will create just platforms, but a lot of them, so make sure to just stay on top of them. It can be kind of tricky on higher difficulties when they're moving faster. The devil one will make these weird like pillars of fire when you get close enough, so that can be kind of annoying, but not really. The tiger one, although, is an absolute nightmare. It'll shoot these orange balls in the air and it can be really difficult to jump in between them, especially when it's on lower health and the platforms start shooting out faster. It's just so frustrating and makes me sad every time. I always end up losing a perfect to this. But yep, that is about all for the first aisle. And now, onto the second aisle, which, as a reminder, will be Grim Matchstick and Beppy the Clown. Beppy the Clown is a pretty good fight. I'd say it can feel a little bit bullshit at times, but you know, besides that, it's a really good fight. So he starts off in his bumper car, and these ducks are flying across the screen. Like, I mean, cardboard cutout ducks, the ones you'd see at, like, the carnival or something. And those things can damage you. It can be a little bit frustrating if you don't have, like, something like the spread shot or a converge. But if you have those, they shouldn't be that big of a problem. Sometimes they can be pink, so parry them. And Beppy just kind of goes from back and forth. That's really all he does in this first phase. So, on to the second one. He blows himself up into a balloon and starts spawning these little, like, balloon dogs. Some of them are pink, you can parry them. And a roller coaster just kind of starts coming on through, which has a pink nose, obviously, parry it. And there are people on this roller coaster. Obviously, touching them will make you take damage. So, avoid them, I guess. Phase 3, he gets on this, like, horse, and there are two horses he can get on, being a green one and a yellow one. The green one shoots horseshoes in a kind of wave-like pattern, and it's probably one of the more difficult attacks to dodge, except for the one in the last phase, but I'll get to that. And the yellow one shoots horseshoes all the way across the screen, and what you're supposed to do is go beneath the spot where there are no horseshoes, but you can just stand underneath the horse and just shoot him directly. So it's really not that bad unless the roller coaster is coming by, then you're probably going to take damage. But other than that, you'll be fine. The final phase, he becomes like a carousel or something. I don't really know what this thing is. And the roller coaster comes by at Mach 5, so even trying to stand on that thing, you have to pray to God. And occasionally he'll spawn these little penguins who throw baseballs. Holy God, these penguins are so annoying. I just want to fucking strangle them. Oh, calm down. But yeah, just stand on the moving platforms and just shoot them, and you'll eventually be done. Grim Matchstick is one of my favorite fights in the entire game. Oh my God, is it so peak. It's like the airplane levels, but you're not in an airplane. I know that makes no sense. Cry about it. So what you have to do is like jump on the clouds, and the clouds are like random, so you can't really fully predict where you're gonna go, which can be annoying, but as someone who likes roguelikes, like The Binding of Isaac, I kinda like this. He can shoot like fireballs, which a lot of people will jokingly call meatballs, and yeah, I can see it. And his tail will sometimes just come out from the ground. I used to find this attack very annoying until I found out, oh, the tail just kind of goes where you are, and it shows up at the bottom of the screen, so I guess I was just kind of blind. So yeah, whenever you feel like the tail's going to show up, just go near the back of the screen, or front, given you're not going to be there all too often, and then just wait for it to happen. Phase 2, he runs back, and this is honestly one of my least favorite part, probably, yeah, my least favorite part of the entire fight. He rolls out his tongue, and a bunch of these little fire guys start marching along. Holy God, these little guys can be so annoying. I don't find them as annoying now, given the experience that I have. But when I first did this, oh my God, I felt like these things just would not stop hitting me. So what they do is, like, they do have, like, a very small indicator, and jump in, like, such a weird arc that it can be kind of difficult to predict where they're going to go. Especially since now, instead of chasing the dragon, Grim is now chasing you. So that's a whole problem. After this phase, he grows 2 more heads, and starts shooting these little fire and bubbles. If you use something like the Chaser, or the Crack Shot, or anything that just has a lot of screen-wide damage, these fire bubbles are so annoying. So what they'll do, upon popping, they will split out into 4 directions, up, down, left, and right. which on the surface doesn't seem that annoying, but all the guns, or at least most of them, go completely horizontally. So you're probably gonna end up accidentally hitting one, and occasionally his head will just like kind of become a flamethrower and will hit a very specific line of clouds, but that's the same each time, so all I really do is just rush to the top, given that's the safest spot, I think, and just kind of wait for him to do his 2 blasts, and then go right back to shooting him. But after that, the entire fight is just kind of over, which I guess I kind of like, given, on second thought, a lot of these are kind of annoying. But I really like this fight. I think it's pretty peak. I don't care what anyone else says. On to Aisle 3. 2 bosses in Aisle 3 we'll be talking about are the Phantom Train and Captain Brineybeard. Phantom Train is like one of my favorite fights in the entire game, so we're starting with Brineybeard. Brineybeard's first phase has a few attacks, so it's not that bad, being real. He has a squid, which he will hold up and will sometimes shoot little pink shots, and sometimes they'll be yellow, so just be careful of that. Then he will sometimes whistle, and that will either cause an octopus, shark, or little sea dogs to appear. The sea dogs will slowly, actually not really slowly, actually rather quickly, go across the bottom of the screen, but they don't have a lot of health, so with the pea shooter you can really just kind of crouch and shoot them. Not really shown by the gameplay shown, but you know what, you'll just ignore that, right? Okay. And then he can make a shark show up, which will go off and bite off like around half of the screen, so just don't stand on the back half. Simple. You can also shoot the shark to make it retreat faster. Easy lemon squeezy. Also the barrel, dear god, the barrel. I forgot it existed because I don't like it. It always. It always shows up at the most inconvenient of times. You see it just going back and forth across the top of the screen, and so you will naturally forget about it because it's so out of the way from everything that is actually happening. So as soon as you let your guard down, bang, you get crushed by this barrel. Every time. Not really every time, but you know, it happens a lot. And then the squid, or octopus, will just shoot ink into the air. If you get hit by ink, it'll just kind of make you a little bit blind, but not by that much. And also, you might not notice this, but the fight is actually put into multiple sections, which is surprising because it is only really seen on the card that you see when you die. But you will notice it once you get to the third part of the first phase, I guess, where the ship itself will start shooting cannonballs at you, which can be annoying, but just watch for the telegraph and you'll be fine. The third phase, then, has the ship just go mad and just shoot the captain off the ship into the background and right into the sea. And now it starts shooting these little bits of fire in bubbles, somehow, out of its tongue. I don't know what the hell that thing is. And will occasionally shoot a giant pink beam. The barrel stays, by the way. Of course it stays. So when the pink beam goes up, just make sure that you trigger the barrel first, so that it just does not really attack you while the beam is going off. You can obviously get on top of the beam and just parry it, but that's far too difficult. That's too difficult for me to even attempt doing that. And that's about all for Brineybeard. On to my favourite boss in the entire game, the Phantom Train. Oh my god, is this fight so good. You start off on this little platform, well, not even really start off, it's just like that for the rest of the fight. And you need to parry these little things on the edge to make it move back and forth, which can be a little annoying, but also there's a thing that makes it even more annoying, which I think actually makes the fight better. I'm gonna be real. These little pumpkins will fly by with bars of soap, I think, and we'll drop them onto these little bars. Parry these soap bars, and you'll be fine. But also you gotta do this whilst also making sure you're hitting the boss, obviously, so that can make things a little bit more difficult. And the first phase has this ghost who just shoots eyeballs. Use the pea shooter, or like the sprite shot or something, and you'll be fine. Or maybe the converge or something, I don't know. Pick whatever the hell you want. The second phase has you fighting this skeleton who will pop up out of 3 different parts of the train, being left, middle, or right. And You can actually just kind of stand in between two of them, and I think it's kind of specific, but I don't really know it myself. So you can just avoid damage by doing that simply. The third phase has you fighting these two lollipop motherfuckers. I don't know what they're even supposed to be. And so they will occasionally go across the screen shooting lightning, but you can just stand on the edge and you'll be perfectly fine. No dodging needed. But also the pumpkins get traded out for little ghosts, which upon killed will drop pink skulls. Make sure those don't hit the handles either, or else you will probably take damage. Then the fourth phase is probably my favorite part of the entire fight. You end up finding the head of the train itself, and it only really has two attacks, being this little bone circle, which upon hitting your x-axis will zip right to you. So just make sure to pay attention to where it is, and you'll be perfectly fine. Upon parrying the tail and actually seeing the engine of the train, which kind of looks like a heart, which I love that detail, it'll start shooting out a bunch of these little fireballs, which can be pretty annoying to dodge, but if you keep the platform in the center of the screen, you should be mostly fine. And then just keep shooting its heart until it eventually dies. Now, onto the final isle of the game, Inkwell Hell, where you finally get to confront the devil yourself. King Dice is such a nothing fight. Like, the entirety of the fight is just mini bosses. That's basically it, and I'm too lazy to talk about all of them. And the only attack that King Dice actually has, he makes cards march across the table, and that's it. You parry the pink ones to stay alive. Great job. Just shoot him until he dies. That's it. It's so boring, and I'm not going to talk about the rest of it. Why? Because fuck you, that's why. Now, the devil is an actually interesting fight. His first phase has so many attacks, to the point where in the recording we couldn't actually get them all. So, as a quick summary, he has a bubble attack, which he will spawn 4 bubbles, which will bounce around the screen. One of them is guaranteed to be purple. Purple? What? Pink. So parry that whenever you can, because it'll just make your life easier. He has this fireball attack, actually he has 2, so that's not very descriptive, where he spawns 6 little fireballs, and they all shoot at you one by one. One of them is guaranteed to be pink, and in the spawning animation, where you can slightly see the glow, you can predict where it's going to spawn. This goes for the bubble attack as well. And the third fire attack is where 4 blue fireballs orbit around a pink one. And even if you parry the pink one, they still start orbiting. This one is probably my least favorite out of all the attacks, because it actually goes on for so long that it'll sometimes just leak into attacks. He has this dragon or snake attack depending on what side you're on, where he will go across one side of the screen, and you just gotta go to the other side. That's fine. Just pray to God that an imp doesn't run at you. Also, yeah, the imps. In the background, they will just show up behind the chair of the devil, and depending on what side they're on, they will run at you from that side of the screen. It's pretty simple. They also have very low health, so you can just gun them down very easily. They're also just relatively small, so you can just jump over them as well. There's the spider attack, where he detaches his head from his body and grows 4 more arms. Those arms are kind of unnecessary, given he just kind of tries to crush you with his head, I guess. The final attack he has is this goat attack, where he turns into a goat and claps all the way down at the ground. So you have to jump and dash to avoid this attack, or if you're playing as Miss Chalice, all you gotta do is double jump. So much simpler. Then he quite literally jumps out of his own skin, and then falls down a hole into hell. So now you gotta fight him in hell. His hitbox here is kind of weird. I think it's the pupil of his eyes, but that's not what I'm going to be talking about right now. The attacks he has here are his eyes will merge together and an axe will form. This thing will circle around, and it also kind of circles in a weird way, but it's easy enough to dodge. He will also turn one of his pupils into a kind of bomb on wings, and it'll come out of his ear, and when that thing comes out, it is guaranteed to be pink, so you can parry it. If you don't parry it, just go to the other side of the arena and you'll be fine. Also, poker chips are falling from the sky the entire fight, which they can be annoying to deal with, but otherwise they're relatively fine. Phase 2, he replaces those two other attacks with two big imps on the side and a bunch of like smaller blue imps that will swoop down at random, I think, to hit you. And yeah, he just completely loses those other two attacks for some reason. Lowers the platform count by 2. So now you're stuck at 3 platforms left to jump across. And then the final phase is probably the easiest given it has the less amount of health, but also that's kind of debatable on if it's the easiest. So you are reduced down to 1 platform, meaning the chips can only fall onto one singular platform. You will also just start crying, but these tiers can be parried, thus making jumping between these chips a little bit easier. But yeah, at this point you can probably just assume you've won. And so as you see his defeat animation play out, you finally get to feel like, wow, I beat this entire game, and with probably a lot of deaths. So, and you really should. This game is like really difficult. It's not like a Souls game or anything, but it's still difficult. But this will be the end of the main game, and the DLC is just this, but way better. So I guess I'll talk about that now.
Hello.
Atom? What the hell are you doing here? I thought I filed a restraining order on you.
Hello, I will be talking about 2 of the DLC bosses. First one up, Moonshine Mob. These bugs are making moonshine, and we gotta stop them to get whatever food item we're getting from the DLC. First phase, we have Charlie Left Legs with the spider. He has a few attacks. First one is just running across the screen, but that can be easily dodged by just not being on that level. He will sometimes pull out a caterpillar and throw it, and it'll just bounce around the screen, but you can kill it. He will sometimes talk on a telephone, and he will just get back up. He will get other bugs to attack you. Also, during the whole fight, there are these other police bugs that are trying to take him down, but those attacks from them can hit you, so you gotta be wary about them. He will also sometimes summon bombs from the ceiling that will hang from spider webs. If you get close to them, they will explode, but you can easily get away from them before they explode. Second phase, we have... what's this bitch's name? Madcap Maddie. Madcap Maddie will summon a gramophone, which she uses to do music, where there's going to be musical lasers everywhere in a circle, and there's 2 in opposite directions. Green is safe, yellow means it's about to fire, and red is where it's not safe. Usually, if you're playing Cuphead or Milkman, you will have to just go around the screen, or use Smoke Dash, or with Miss Chalice, you can just iframe dodge. And... there's nothing much else, except there are the police bugs again. It will be chasing on layers 1 and 3, and some alive moonshine on layers 1 through 3. The moonshine, though, can be parried very easily if you're playing Michalis. And then we have phase 3, after Madcap Maddie goes back up and leave. There will be an anteater. I don't know his name, but I don't like him. Anyways, he will do a few things. The first thing he will do is go into the foreground and attack you with his trunk that he will sometimes go on one of the 3 levels on one side, depending on which way he went in the foreground. He will then stick out his tongue, which actually can be parried, but it doesn't really do much. And he'll just try to figure out which layer he's going to be on for the final time. Also, you cannot shoot his tongue. That does not do damage. You have to hit the trunk itself. Also, at the starter phase, there is a snail that you can actually do a little bit of damage to. That's not important, surely. But after each tongue attack, he will spit out a large amount of bugs that will be in a smoke cloud fighting each other. And that will just bounce along the screen, but you can kill it. Usually, I just like to end the fight faster, though. And then you win screen plays, except, no, it's a fake screen. Then the guy inside the anteater's head, which is a snail, will pop out and just do a singular attack by yelling into his megaphone. And sometimes there's a parryable thing, but really that's it. And then he dies. And that's the Moonshine Mob, and I really like them. While Toby is tied up back in his closet right now, so I can now talk about Mortimer Freeze. He is a witch, cultist, whatever. I don't know, but I will be talking about specifically the expert mode boss fight. First, he will summon a icicle people down in a direction depending on where you are towards him, and they will then get out of the ground after falling and chase you. They can be easily killed, and actually, I used his boss fight to get the achievement for beating a DLC boss without killing any minions. Very easy achievement if you do it on Mortimer Freeze. So after that, he will either do one of two attacks, and then go back to the icicle attack, which is either summoning a giant orange whale that he will slam on the ground. It takes a very large part of the screen, but it's usually fine. Or he will summon tarot cards, and they will slowly float to the player, and sometimes they can be parried. After that, he transitions to Phase 2, which he actually summons a snow beast called Jupiter, and it kind of wraps around him. He will usually he'll roll to and be on either one side of the screen. He can roll at you, and usually he'll roll forward. The last roll will always be a jump, so be wary of a jump, since that might catch you off guard. He sometimes will transform into a refrigerator, which will do two things at the same time. First, it will summon ice cubes, and every time they hit the ground, they will break apart into two smaller ice cubes. And then also it will be summoning popsicle bats that will come and be like a slight nuisance, but yeah, it's fine. And sometimes he'll then roll again immediately after. And then in expert mode, I think he will slam his fists in the ground, and swords will come out of the ice after a small delay, which can be dodged by just jumping over and dashing at the correct time. Once you've done enough damage, preferably with a roundabout, because that thing does shreds this phase, he will turn into a snowflake and fly into the air, and then you will have to kind of like Hollow Knight final boss on a few platforms, and there will be 5 spinning platforms you have to maneuver around for the entirety of Phase 3. First attack is he rolls himself up with a crank, and that pops out one of its eyes, and that eye will every once in a while fire off a vertical laser in the entire screen, and it'll fire 3 times in normal mode and 5 times in expert. He will open up himself and to reveal his hands, and then he create buckets. These buckets can be parried, and if the first ones can be parried, it's a much easier attack, but preferably you always want to parry one of them. But when they hit the other side of the screen, they will split into 3 moons that will fire out diagonally, one horizontally, and the other one diagonally down, which kind of works like Wally Warbles, but you're not flying, so be wary of that. And finally, will turn his mouth into an ice cream stand and go around the screen and put ice creams everywhere. This attack can be a little bit messy. It's I think the hardest attack to dodge in Phase 3. I just try to stay on exactly one part of the arena by constantly jumping from one platform to the next, being in the same place and dodging 1 or 2 with the dodge roll on Miss Chalice. After that, you win. I think this was a really fun boss fight and really good theming. But I need to get out of here before the cops get here, so bye, Toby!
Oh, okay. The police should be here soon. Well, that was Cuphead for you. Be sure to like and subscribe if you want me to file more restraining orders on these two. And remember, have a great day or night. See you in the next one.